The 2022 NFL schedule has been released, and up until Thursday night, we knew who everyone was going to play, and of course some games had been leaked, but now we know when. And there is a lot to look forward to in 2022, like the Bills at the Rams to kick the season off, but everyone knows each of those teams, and they're fantastic, and everyone knows they are Super Bowl contenders. They're not exactly flying under anyone's radar heading into the season, unlike a couple of teams we're going to discuss in today's video. I wanted to wait until the schedule was released to do this video because teams can have easy starts to their season and quickly jump out to a 3-0 start, only to beat up on teams that aren't very good, looking at you 2021 Carolina Panthers. And in today's video, we're going to discuss several underrated teams, and without further ado, let's begin. And the first team we are going to thoroughly discuss in today's video is the Baltimore Ravens for several reasons. When competing for championships, there's a couple of prerequisites that have to happen in order for a team to be competing for the Lombardi on Super Bowl Sunday. The first, of course, is to have a good roster, as an incomplete team will not get there no matter who the head coach is. Teams that are more talented generally win more games, and look at the Rams last year versus a team like the Chicago Bears, for example. And the Ravens have a lot of talent on their roster, from a former MVP quarterback to not just one, but a couple of good running backs in J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, and a few good role players in Mike Davis and rookie Tyler Beatty. I'm not going through the whole roster, but you get the point. A team also has to have a good head coach, and they have one of the best in the NFL in John Harbaugh, who has produced winning team after winning team and has also proven he is not scared to go for it and take chances. He was actually one of the leaders in terms of innovating more towards going for two and going for it on fourth and shorts and everything down this rabbit hole of the NFL. And number 3, which the Ravens certainly did not have in 2021, and that's that a team has to have decent, but not necessarily great, and that's decent injury luck. They were hurt time and time again in 2021, and nearly everyone on the roster missed time due to injury. And they usually weren't little stingers either. They were usually season-ending injuries like J.K. Dobbins, Marcus Peters, Gus Edwards, Marlon Humphrey, Deshaun Elliott, and plenty of others suffered. But heading into 2022, they still have a solid roster and had a very good offseason, as in addition to a great draft, they went out and added safety Marcus Williams from the Saints to bolster a secondary that needed a safety like Marcus. Chuck Clark and Deshaun Elliott aren't bad safeties by any means, but the Ravens needed a player that's going to be more of a coverage-based safety versus a in-the-box or blitzing safety, and Marcus Williams will do a much better job in coverage than what Chuck and Deshaun did for Baltimore. And everyone is hyping up the Cincinnati Bengals about how they are the team of the future and how they own the Ravens because of last year, even though Josh Johnson started the game in Cincinnati, and I agree Cincinnati's future is bright. But when they played the Ravens the first time in Baltimore last year, the Ravens were already half a dozen season-ending injuries into their season, and it only got worse for them. And people seem to forget how good this team is when they're on, and all they need to do is stay healthy. If they can stay healthy, they truly can beat anyone. Sure, games will be tough, and I'm not going to act like Baltimore will play Buffalo and that they'd hypothetically win by 3 or 4 scores, but there's no game that a healthy Ravens team will not have the opportunity to win, and they are without a doubt one of the most underrated teams in all of the NFL heading into the 2022 season. And from an AFC North team, we go to discuss an NFC North team, and it is the Detroit Lions. Now, to be clear, it wouldn't surprise me if the Ravens represented the AFC in the Super Bowl, because there are about 8 teams in the AFC that you can make a legitimate case for to go to the Super Bowl, but for the Lions in the NFC, that would very much surprise me. And I brought up the schedule release at the beginning of the video because of all 32 NFL teams, the Lions are the only one to not have a primetime game, and I was kind of shocked by that. And of all things the NFL could do, they gave the Bears a primetime game in Green Bay in Week 2, as if we more than likely don't already know what's going to happen within that game. Now, I realize the Lions were a 3-win team in 2021, and it's easy to get caught up in the fact that they were just a 3-win team, but this was also a team that won 3 of its final 6 games, including a 3-score win over the Arizona Cardinals. And what people also conveniently forget when discussing the Lions is how many close losses they had prior to beating the Minnesota Vikings for their first win of the season last year. The Ravens started out the year 8-3, and it took a 66-yard NFL record game-winning field goal just to beat the Lions, and Detroit also gave the 49ers, a team that went to the NFC Championship game by the way, everything they had in Week 1 and nearly completed a 24-point comeback to start the Dan Campbell era. The Detroit Lions finished with the second worst record in the league last year and drafted Aiden Hutchinson number 2 overall, and good for them. He's going to be a great player for the Lions and a pass rusher they desperately need. But my point here is they are miles different than what the Jags were last year, who finished with the worst record in the league. Jacksonville was a dumpster fire for much of the season, while the Lions are a team that, bought into what Dan Campbell was preaching. They were thoroughly invested into what he was saying, and they have several good football players on their roster now with genuine belief, which is more than what could have been said about previous Lions teams and how they played under Fat Matt. And by the way, for as much as I love what they are doing, yes, I agree Jared Goff does hold them back at the QB position, but they can address that a year from now. And Jared Goff has led a team to a Super Bowl before, and it wouldn't surprise me if the Lions are a fringe playoff team at the end of the 2022 season. They have a very bright future and finished the season in 2021 strong when they very, very easily could have folded time and time again. And from the Motor City to the Big Easy we go to discuss the New Orleans Saints. And when discussing an underrated NFL team, there's usually a few things that factor in, and it factored in with both the Ravens and Lions, and especially the Saints as well. And that's that there is usually a Super Bowl contending team in your division, which the Ravens had a team in their division go last year in the Bengals, and the Lions of course have the Packers in their division, who get praised constantly from the media and are a Super Bowl contender year in and year out. And there was quite a story this offseason within the NFC South that the GOAT retired, then less than 2 months later unretired, and there was a lot of discussion around the Falcons and kind of what are they doing and how bad do they intend to be in 2022, and then there was also a lot of discussion around the Panthers and how will they attack their offseason because of Matt Rule being on the hot seat entering the season. So with all of that discussion around the NFC South, there wasn't much being said about the New Orleans Saints, and it was a lot of, oh, well, they might be good this year, or they lost Sean Payton, so they will for sure suck, and there just wasn't much being said about them this offseason, and if there was, it was usually a bleak outlook. But we'll address the two biggest negatives for them from this past offseason, then move on to the positives because there are a ton of them. The negatives are Teron Armstead is a Dolphin and your head coach retired. And to be honest, I think Teron becoming a Dolphin will have a much bigger impact early on at least than Sean retiring, not because he wasn't a good head coach or anything like that, but here's my take on the Sean Payton retirement. He didn't wake up one day this offseason and say to himself, alright, yep, I'm moving on, next chapter, thanks for everything, New Orleans. And there was a lot of discussion amongst him and the coaching staff and the front office before this happened, and if there wasn't, they wouldn't have kept Dennis Allen and made him the head coach. They would have essentially started fresh and have brand new coaches, and the staff would look entirely different. Also, you would have seen a lot of panic around Mickey Loomis and everybody, and they knew this was coming. So how this ties into Teron Armstead being a direct bigger loss than Sean is, players had to have an idea it was coming after the season, and I don't want to say we're already preparing for it, because preparing for a coach to retire while you're trying to make a postseason run like the Saints were in 2021 sounds bad, but at the same time, it was in the back of their heads. And Teron is a great tackle, and losing a great offensive tackle is, well, never good. But Jameis Winston played good for the Saints last year, and when he was on the field, he wasn't the 30-30 player that he was for Tampa in 2019. Sure, he had bad moments, as what player doesn't, but that was with a receiving core that wasn't very good, and Jameis will have a much improved duo this year that he simply didn't have in 2021, and that is 2019 Offensive Player of the Year Michael Thomas and first-round pick Chris Olave. And those three will be working on chemistry all summer long, and you better believe Michael Thomas will be back this year and have every intention of getting back to his former self and having a 100-catch, 1,300-yard year. The slant boy narrative is truly comical, as if he straight up just ran slants the entire game, it would make him incredibly easy to cover, and now he has a legitimate partner in crime. I don't think the Saints will win the NFC South, as 20 plus years of evidence has shown me to not bet against Tom Brady, but I do think they're in a good position to be a wildcard team and to create problems for any team they face in the playoffs, and that includes Tampa. They beat the Packers by 35 points last year, and they shut out the Bucs, which was the first time a Tom Brady-led team had been shut out in over 15 years, and people seem to think this team is going to suck or not be very good, and for what exact reason? I'm still trying to figure that out myself, and this is a team that can beat anybody. Because as we know in the NFL, it is truly any given Sunday. And with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, now is the time I ask you to please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as it would truly mean the world. And until next time, as always, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.